This video contains strong adult language, may not be suitable for children or sensitive people. Boom boom.
The 2018 Los Angeles Rams. Jeff Fisher, Mr. 7-9, except for the end with the Rams when he was worse than that. In his 3 years leading the team, they were 17-31. In fact, they were so bad that the team had to move to Los Angeles just to get away from Jeff Fisher. But then came in Sean McVay and he changed things instantaneously. Before McVay set up shop, former first overall pick Jared Goff looked like a major bust, leading the last ranked offense in the NFL. Yeah, a lot of people were beating Goff back then. Still are.
Like middle school offense out there.
But when the babyface McVay came to town, they went 11-5 with the Offensive Player of the Year Todd Gurley, the Defensive Player of the Year Aaron Donald, and Coach of the Year 10-year-old Sean McVay. The next year, they made it to a Super Bowl. Now they lost that 13-3 in the most boring Super Bowl that ever happened against the Patriots. But a few years later, after bringing in Matthew Stafford, they beat the Cincinnati Bengals in Super Bowl 56 to become the first team ever to win the big game in their own stadium. Well, the stadium that they share with the freeloading Chargers. The 1999 St. Louis Rams, the greatest show on turf. One of only 5 teams in NFL history to score more than 30 points in 12 different games. But it wasn't just offense, as on the other side of the ball, the Rams defense returned 7 picks for touchdowns. Yes, 7, the third most in NFL history. Oh yeah, and Kurt Warner won the regular season and Super Bowl MVP. But before all of that, the Rams were homeless and lost, moving from Los Angeles to St. Louis in 1995. No, that's not a typo. The team moved around more than your mom. The Rams went 22-41 in their 4 years in St. Louis before they won the Lombardi. They were awful, but smart moves like drafting Orlando Pace #1 overall, trading for Marshall Faulk, and putting faith in undrafted Kurt Warner were all the right levers to pull. It's amazing this team only won 1 Super Bowl. Los Angeles Rams 2009. The Rams hit rock bottom in 2009, finishing the season 1-15. Rookie quarterback Keith Null made his first NFL start in week 14, epitomizing the team's desperation. Like, who even remembers Keith Null? Like, if this dude told you he once started an NFL game in a bar, you'd quickly raise your bullshit meter. The season marked the Rams' worst record since moving to St. Louis and led to them drafting the ultimate bag securer Sam Bradford as part of a full rebuild. The Los Angeles Rams. The Rams' loss in Super Bowl 53 was not only terrible for the Rams, but it was terrible for America. Literally the most boring Super Bowl ever, for one that was actually, at least on the score sheet, close. Like, seriously, if I have insomnia, I put that game on. Watching Finance Bros talk is more interesting than that freaking loss. Hey, Los Angeles Rams 2009. Finishing 1-15, the St. Louis Rams 2009 season was an exercise in futility. The defense was dreadful, and head coach Steve Spagnuolo's schemes seemed ineffective, even though he is a defensive guru. Spagnuolo would eventually give way to Mr. 7-9 Jeff Fisher, which was also an awful existence. Los Angeles Rams. Matthew Stafford is getting so old, his wife might dump him for his backup.
I dated the backup to piss him off. Like, that was the type of situation we were in.
I honestly don't know how many good seasons he has left, but good thing Jimmy G is here in case you lose in the first round going forward. Aaron Donald up and quit on you during his prime. And also, I think you guys have the best mascot, to be honest. Stetson Bennett was a good choice. The Los Angeles Rams. Matthew Stafford twice on this list. Late in the fourth quarter of Super Bowl 56 with 1:28 to go, everyone on earth knew Stafford was going to test Eli Apple. And Apple got burnt like a joint in Snoop Dogg's mouth. The TD swung the lead to the Rams, who would win their second Super Bowl, and the Lions first. Los Angeles Rams. Do your fans even know what football is? They're always leaving early. Your owner, who financed the $5 billion stadium with his own money, he's like an asshole or something. The YouTube Theater, SoFi Stadium. Did you know there is an entire theater inside SoFi Stadium, as if the NFL's most opulent arena could not get more opulent. This thing is huge. It seats 6,000 and has an upper deck and is 227,000 square feet. It also has 6 luxury boxes and a clubhouse with an additional 140 premium seats. Opened in 2021, it houses concerts, conferences, and even esports as it hosted the Rocket League Championship Series. But from the air, you would never know it existed. SoFi Stadium, Inglewood, California. SoFi Stadium had a hefty price tag, over $6 billion, and some of that included purchasing and tearing down Hollywood Park Racetrack, which had been there since 1938. Not only were both tracks completely removed, but all the stables too. I don't know what they did with the horses. They were probably all shot in front of a gleefully sadistic Stan Kroenke. Anaheim Stadium, Anaheim, California. Anaheim Stadium was the home of the Los Angeles Rams from 1980 to 1994, when it was one of the ugliest dual-use monstrosities in all of sports. After the Rams left for St. Louis, it went back to baseball only and morphed into a decent-looking baseball stadium. Edward Jones Dome, St. Louis, Missouri. Ah yes, the dome built to lure the Rams away from Los Angeles was ultimately used as the excuse to move the Rams back to Los Angeles. The 20-year home of the St. Louis Rams, the Edward Jones Dome hosted 168 NFL games and even saw the Rams raise a banner. At some point, Stan Kroenke bought the team, wanted a new stadium, and after St. Louis did cave in to his demands, he still left anyways. St. Louis sued him and won, but they still lost their football team. The Edward Jones Dome sits semi-abandoned, mostly as a concert venue and host of the St. Louis Battlehawks of the UFL. Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum. And the last entry in the still standing but active category, the Coliseum first hosted NFL games in 1946 when the Cleveland Rams played a game there and was like, hey, we kind of like LA. Let's stay. The Chargers also called this place home during their AFL days. The Rams returned from 2016 to 2019 until SoFi Stadium was built. In a game that was supposed to be played in Mexico in 2018, the Rams battled the Chiefs in maybe the best Monday night game ever, which ended 54-51 right here in the Coliseum. The USC Trojans play in this 103-year-old stadium.
LA Rams. Hey, remember when the Rams won the Super Bowl a couple years ago? Yeah, me neither. Nobody talks about it, and rightfully so, because it was a bot championship. It was a fluke. They won that Super Bowl, but how about the Super Bowls they lost against the Patriots and Tom Brady? Yeah, they really set back civilization a couple decades rather, by allowing Tom Brady to win multiple Super Bowls where he scored just 13 points on 11 possessions. It's still disgusting. But then even last year, we talk about last year, the Rams, you guys made the playoffs again last year after you went 5-12 as the defending Super Bowl champions, literally the worst defending Super Bowl champions ever. Last year, you're in Detroit, you had great opportunities to potentially win the game in the final quarter, and you didn't. You fucked it up, and you ended up going out as a wild card team. And guess what? You kind of made it lucky again this year. You made it back to the playoffs this year. Who knows? Oh, you're the popular dark horse pick. Guess what? Okay, I understand he won the Super Bowl. So did Trent Dilfer, but Matthew Stafford is a loser. Matthew Stafford's a career loser. He's always been a loser. At no point in his career, which is now 16 years in the NFL, he's never had a winning career record, okay? This is a guy that is going to set the career losses record for starting quarterbacks if he plays a couple more seasons in NFL history. The guy is just a loser outside of 1 year out of 16. So do I think that the Rams, that you guys have any chance of winning another Super Bowl with Matthew Stafford under center? Absolutely fucking. LA Rams, for me, the biggest need is the offensive tackle. Now, this does change if Matthew Stafford decides to ask out and officially become a trade. For as much as I love Jimmy Garoppolo, we all know on a serious note that he can't stay healthy in his career, and when he has been on the field, he's been turnover prone. So if Matthew Stafford does decide he wants a trade, then the biggest need immediately becomes quarterback. But as of right now, Stafford's on the Rams, and so their biggest need remains offensive tackle, because their left tackle from last year is a free agent. Their right tackle is entering their last year of his deal deal and wasn't very healthy in 2024. So the Rams could really use a lot of time looking at the tackle staff. Los Angeles Rams, 1945. So yeah, I had to go pretty far back in time for this one. And I'll be honest, the reason I chose this one was because the Rams in this time period, they had a absolutely blistering offense, and it was because of Elroy Crazy Legs Hirsch and Tom Fears. The combination of those two guys, who are both in the Hall of Fame, by the way, at the wide receiver position, as paired with Hall of Fame quarterback Norm Van Brocklin, led to some pretty high-scoring teams. They also drafted two other Pro Bowlers with Dick Huffman and Dick Horner. A lot of Dicks back then. And they also had some longtime starters, including well, you know what? I'm not going to say his last name. Los Angeles Rams, Allen Robinson II, 2022. 2022 offseason was not a great offseason for the Los Angeles NFL team. Allen Robinson had been a respectable and even very good receiver at times for the Jaguars and Bears before the Rams, fresh off of a Super Bowl victory, decided to sign Robinson to make themselves even better. They signed him to a 3-year, $46.5 million contract with $30 million of that guaranteed, and what they got out of it was 10 games, 33 catches, 339 yards, and 3 touchdowns before Robinson got hurt, and then the Rams released him after the season. The 2022 Rams also are the worst Super Bowl defending champion ever, going just 5-12. And when you look at signings like Robinson, it's not hard to see why. Los Angeles Rams, Sean McVay. Sean McVay, I don't even think the guy's 40 years old yet. He's not. He's 39 years old, and he's already been to the playoffs 6 times. He's won a Super Bowl. He's been to 2 Super Bowls. He's created an entire coaching tree. Anybody who even takes a piss within 50 yards of this guy gets a head coaching job within 2 years. It's honestly insane. He's won over 60% of his games in both the regular season and the playoffs. And of all the teams the Eagles faced in the playoffs last year, it was the Rams who came the closest to dethroning them. So Sean McVay, one of the best coaches in the league, one of the youngest coaches in the league as well. He's going to have this job for as long as he wants it. I gave him a 0.5 out of 5 on the hot seat ranking, which I think might even be a little bit too critical. He might just be a 0 out of 4. Los Angeles Rams, Byron Young. For years, Aaron Donald was the headliner on the Rams defense, but he retired. And then last year, Jared Verse came in and won Defensive Rookie of the Year and stole a lot of the headlines. But Byron Young has just flown under the radar for most of his first 2 seasons in the NFL after being a 3rd-round pick in 2023. As a rookie, he had 8 sacks and 61 tackles and finished 8th in Defensive Rookie of the Year voting. Last year, pretty similar numbers, 7.5 sacks. The one thing with Young is that he's ironically old for a guy in his 3rd season. He's going to be 27 by the time the season starts, but that's still young enough to make an impact. I believe that this is the year where Young and also Jared Verse, of course, become one of the best tandems in the NFL, or at least even better than they already were a year ago. The one area where Young does need to clean up on is in pass coverage. He can be susceptible in pass coverage as an outside linebacker, but he's more of a pass rusher. Let's just be real. I think, and would not be surprised, if Young ends up getting a 12-sack season and Verse ends up becoming an All-Pro. But Young is my pick because everybody already has Jared Verse on the map because of his accolades that he won as a rookie. Los Angeles Rams, Devontae Adams. I really don't feel comfortable with this decision, honestly, but I still went with it because Adams a couple years ago was in the discussion for best receiver in the league, and he's kind of dipped a little bit. He still is a good receiver, a still 1,000-yard receiver, still gets a bunch of touchdowns, a decent amount of touchdowns every year, but the last 2 seasons, he hasn't made a Pro Bowl, he hasn't been on any All-Pro teams. If there's any quarterback who history shows will get his top target a bunch of stats, it's Matthew Stafford, as he did it with Cooper Kupp, as he did it with Calvin Johnson, he did it with Puka Nacua. So I kind of expect Adams to have a bounce back year, but I can't really think of any other Los Angeles Rams players that are so highly thought of at this point that are also overrated. So Adams is really the odd man out. I still think he belongs in the Hall of Fame someday, and he's certainly a lot better than Devin Hester. But as of right now, I guess he gets this award that I'm sure he doesn't want, but I have a feeling he'll prove me wrong. LA Rams, possibly Matthew Stafford. There's a rumor going around that Matthew Stafford might be dead, and that the Rams over the last couple weeks in the offseason, as we've gotten closer to the start of the season and gone through training camp, that they are basically doing a weekend at Bernie's type of deal with Stafford, trotting his corpse out there to make it seem like, oh, hey, look, there's no problem here. I don't know. Either way, with Stafford, it's kind of like, you know, he's in a weird spot. Again, he's like the elder statesman. We already know what Stafford is at this point. He's a guy, he's a good quarterback. He's basically like the mature version of, he's I don't know, he's a lot like Justin Herbert. Herbert's a lot like the Detroit version of him. And we don't know if Herbert will get get the breaks to have a second act, get traded to a loaded team, the way that Stafford did with the Rams. But they're very similar. But the difference is that Stafford has that Super Bowl championship. He has that Super Bowl championship. When he's gotten to the playoffs, he's been pretty good for the most part, Stafford, right? But the issue with him is he's never been consistent enough to be a truly elite quarterback. So the fact that he's viewed higher now in the league quarterback hierarchy, a lot of people talk about him as like a top 6 or 7 quarterback. To me, that reflects more about the state of the quarterbacks now than it does about Stafford himself. I don't think Stafford is any better now than he was 10 years ago, or in 2011 when he was throwing for 40 touchdowns and 5,000 yards. I just think that there aren't as many great quarterbacks right now in the league, so he looks better in comparison relative to the rest of the field. It's kind of like how a chick, at work isn't really that good looking, but she's the hottest chick in the office, so I guess she's like a 6 out of 10, maybe a soft 6.5 out of 10, but because there's no other hot chicks at work, she feels like an 8 out of 10. She's work hot. That's basically what Stafford is, or at least or potentially was. Again, we don't know if he's actually dead or not. We'll see if he's able to be alive at the start of the season, but there is some concern about whether or not he's